"You're under arrest, Grandpa." He didn't say a word as they put the handcuffs on him. He just stared straight ahead, calm and silent, like none of this was new to him. In the courtroom, people whispered. A few even laughed. One juror rolled her eyes. To them, he looked like just another bitter old man caught in the wrong fight. But no one knew, not even the judge, that the man in chains had once ended a war with a single shot. The only person who knew the truth wore 4 stars on his shoulder and was already on his way to the courthouse. The courthouse was smaller than most expected. A simple 2-story brick building between an old library and a dentist's office in a quiet southern town. A town where people still nodded at strangers and trusted uniforms to mean authority. That morning, the parking lot was half full before the sun even rose. Reporters quietly found their seats near the back, sensing a story that hadn't yet been told. The case seemed small, a fight at a gas station. No weapons, no blood. Just a retired Marine and a younger man who said the veteran had threatened him with military violence. It should have been a routine misdemeanor, maybe dismissed quickly. But something about the man's silence made people uneasy. He never defended himself. He never explained. He showed up to every hearing alone, wearing the same plain shirt and jeans. His eyes made the bailiffs uneasy, though no one knew why. Some said he was unstable. Others called him stubborn. One article labeled him a disgruntled ex-military man with a temper problem. No one talked about his record. No one asked. Most thought he was just another veteran who never fit into civilian life. That's what they said in town, when they talked at all. He lived alone at the edge of a wooded lot in a trailer with no internet and no mailbox. Neighbors saw him walking at dawn, back straight, steps measured. Always the same boots, always silent. Some thought he was strange. Others thought he was broken. But no one thought he mattered. In court, his name was just a line on paper clipped to the prosecutor's file. Daniel Rigg, 66, former U.S. Marine. That was all anyone knew. That was all they thought they needed to know. The public defender barely looked up from her notes. She had tried to talk to him, but got nothing. No family, no witnesses, no alibi, no anger. Just that same quiet calm that made even the judge hesitate to say his name. The bailiff brought him in slowly, cuffs tight. He didn't resist. He looked straight ahead, eyes blank. Not defeated, just done. Behind the defense table, people watched like he was a curiosity. One man whispered, "Isn't that the guy who yelled at a kid over a parking spot?" Another said, "No, I heard he threatened to shoot someone." PTSD, probably. The judge arrived. The room stood. The trial started. It moved fast. Witnesses gave vague stories. A store clerk mentioned aggressive body language. A woman said she heard him mutter about knowing how to kill. The victim, a man in his 30s with a neck brace he didn't really need, told the jury he was scared when the old man looked at him. When asked what was said, he hesitated, then said the veteran told him he could kill him from 800 yards away without blinking. The court murmured. The defense didn't object. Daniel Rigg sat still, face empty, unmoved. The prosecutor spoke with confidence. "Ladies and gentlemen, this man served long ago. Now he just lives in the shadow of his uniform. He thinks his past lets him intimidate others. That's not heroism. That's dangerous." Some jurors nodded. Others looked down. The public defender said nothing. The judge gave instructions. The jury went to deliberate. Bailiffs led Rigg away. Cameras clicked. People whispered. No one noticed the black SUV that pulled up outside. The man inside wore a crisp uniform with 4 silver stars. His eyes didn't look at cameras or reporters. They were fixed on the name, Daniel Rigg. The jury had been gone less than 3 minutes when someone whispered, "They won't take long." The judge stayed, reviewing notes, as if she knew the verdict was clear. Daniel Rigg sat alone, hands still, eyes steady. His cuffs were off, but the chain hung from his belt. He looked like he didn't plan to fight, like he accepted that people only saw what they wanted to see. Outside, the hallway filled. A photo of the trial was on social media. Local news anchors set up outside the doors. Veterans who had served with Rigg, men who hadn't seen him in years, started arriving. They weren't there to testify. They hadn't been asked. They just felt something was wrong. Then the SUV came in quietly. The man who stepped out wasn't a bodyguard or politician. He was General Samuel Wyatt, retired Chief of Special Operations Command. Most civilians wouldn't know his face. But the moment he entered, the receptionist stood taller. The security guard didn't ask for ID. The general nodded once and asked, "Where's Courtroom 3?" His voice was calm but firm. He wasn't here to watch. He had a purpose. Inside, no one knew he was there. The jury hadn't returned. The judge tapped her pen quietly. The public defender typed on her laptop, pretending to work. The prosecutor checked his phone and smirked. Daniel Rigg stayed the same, unshaken, calm, ready. In the hall, General Wyatt walked past reporters without a word. One asked if he was press. He didn't answer. Another recognized his stars and began recording. The general paused outside the courtroom door. His face was calm but heavy, not with guilt or anger, but respect and urgency. He waited, then opened the door and stepped in. The judge looked up, confused at first. Then, seeing the insignia, she rose immediately. The courtroom froze. The jury was still out, but everything changed. Reporters pointed cameras. The prosecutor stood, blinking like this was a prank. Wyatt didn't go to the bench or the prosecution. He walked straight to the defense table to Daniel Rigg. Daniel finally looked up. Their eyes met. No words yet, but the air shifted. The silence wasn't awkward. It felt respectful. For a moment, no one breathed. The general stood still, hands behind his back, facing Rigg like a man about to say something heavy. The judge cleared her throat softly. "General, can I ask why you're here?" Wyatt looked at Rigg, then the courtroom. His voice was clear and steady. "I'm here because this man is the reason I'm alive. He doesn't know I came. He didn't ask me to. In fact, he probably hoped I wouldn't. But I heard about this trial. I couldn't stay silent." The prosecutor shifted, uncomfortable. Reporters leaned in. A juror stopped in the doorway, sensing this was bigger than a simple case. Wyatt stepped closer to the bench, not to command, but to be heard. 31 years ago, I was pinned down behind a crumbling wall outside Fallujah. My unit was scattered. Communications were down. I had 2 wounded men and no way out. We were surrounded. Then, out of nowhere, a sniper opened the path. He didn't speak, didn't wait for thanks. He just fired. 12 confirmed kills in under 5 minutes. Every shot perfect. The last one through a rooftop hatch at 936 yards, hitting a moving target in the wind. That shot saved my life and the lives of the men with me. He paused, looking around. That sniper was Gunnery Sergeant Daniel Rigg. Murmurs spread, but Wyatt raised a hand. The room went silent again. "I've read the testimony. I've seen the charges. But I'm telling you, no matter what words were said in a parking lot, this man has earned the right to be heard in ways you can't measure. He doesn't talk much. Never did. He didn't come back from war seeking praise or parades. But if you think the man sitting here is a threat, you don't know what real restraint means." He turned to the judge. "With your permission, I'd like to speak to the jury." The judge, stunned, nodded slowly. "Proceed, General." Wyatt stepped to the front of the jury box and took a breath. There's a reason Daniel Rigg didn't defend himself. It's not guilt. It's because he's tired. Tired of being misunderstood. Tired of the world confusing silence for threat. But I know him. When chaos erupts, when bullets fly, when no one knows what to do, you pray a man like him is near. He stepped back, then quietly added, "You don't put men like this in chains. You put them in history books." In front of the courtroom, the reporters, the judge, the jury, and the man who once saved his life, General Wyatt did something no one expected. He dropped to one knee. not out of weakness or show, but as an apology. Not for himself, but for a system that forgot who Daniel Rigg was. No one moved. Not the bailiff, not the prosecutor, not even the judge, frozen behind her bench. The jury, coming back from deliberation, stared at the four-star general kneeling before the man they were about to convict. One juror wiped away a tear. Another looked down, ashamed. The prosecutor opened his mouth to object, but no words came. Daniel Rigg didn't react at first. He didn't look for praise or surprise. His gaze stayed on the man kneeling before him, eyes heavy with a lifetime of unspoken things. After what felt like forever, he stood up, walked to the general, and shook his hand. Wyatt stood, and the two men faced each other. Not as officer and sniper, not as witness and defendant, but as soldiers bound by something deeper than anyone else could understand. The judge cleared her throat, her voice soft. In light of this testimony and the extraordinary context, I am dismissing all charges immediately. Her gavel came down, not hard, but final. Daniel's chains were removed. This time, no one touched him without respect. He didn't rush away. He turned, nodded once to the jury, and walked slowly down the aisle. Each step echoed through the courtroom, like the end of a sentence long overdue. Outside, a few veterans stood at attention as he passed. One saluted without being asked. Reporters tried to speak, but no one could ask a question that didn't. Sound foolish. Rigg kept walking. He said nothing. He never needed to. General Wyatt followed him, not as an escort, but as a witness. As they stepped into the sunlight, for the first time in years, Daniel Rigg looked less like a ghost and more like a man coming home from a war that never ended. Sometimes a hero doesn't wear a uniform anymore. He doesn't march or salute or stand for ceremony. Sometimes he walks into a courtroom with a quiet stare and worn boots. Not asking for praise, just hoping the world will stop misunderstanding his silence. Daniel Rigg never asked to be defended. He didn't tell his story. He didn't need to. Because there are men like him who believe doing the right thing shouldn't require applause. They carry their scars privately, their memories quietly, and their honor with a weight most will never see until it's too late. But not this time. This time, someone spoke up. This time, someone remembered. This time, a man with 4 stars knelt in a courtroom, not to beg, but to fix what we often get wrong. We forget what sacrifice looks like once the war is over. We forget that those who save lives overseas are still trying to survive here. We forget that silence doesn't mean weakness. It often means a strength too deep to explain. Daniel Rigg didn't leave that courtroom changed. He never needed the verdict to know who he was. But this time, the world paused long enough to see. Maybe that's the lesson. Not to wait for medals or ceremonies, but to recognize greatness while it's still quietly walking among us. This story is from the Battlefield Echoes. Before we go, here's a question. Have you ever known someone who never asked for praise but deserved it more than anyone? Tell us in the comments what they meant to you and how you remember them. And if you think stories like this need to be told, hit subscribe to support the channel. We'll see you next time.